12:02 a.m. The Eastern Pacific, 200 miles off the coast of South America. The Mark 38 25mm gun on the starboard rail of the U.S. destroyer erupts, its mechanical bark echoing across the black water. The target is a low-profile vessel, a 40-foot sliver of fiberglass packed with 5 tons of cocaine and enough fuel to turn it into a floating bomb. The pirate boat isn't stopping. It isn't even veering. It is a suicide run. The pilot, likely fueled by high-grade stimulants and the knowledge that a prison cell is the only other option, pushes the throttles to the wall. On the destroyer's bridge, the crew can hear the high-pitched scream of the pirates' outboard engines over the wind. A single RPG-7 rocket streaks out from the pirate's deck. But the pirates didn't just try to run, they fired the first shot. And in the middle of the Pacific, there is nowhere to hide from what comes next. The U.S. destroyer hammers through the 6-foot swells at 30 knots, 9,000 tons of steel slicing the Pacific like a razor. On the bridge, AN/SLQ-32V6. The ship's electronic ears just smelled a pirate radar signal. The signal came from less than 2 miles away. The AN/SPY-1D radar screen is a chaotic mess of green clutter. Somewhere in that mess is a low-profile vessel. It's a 45-foot hull of fiberglass and lead, sitting so deep in the water that only 2 inches of the cockpit are visible. Because it sits so low, the destroyer's radar waves don't bounce off it. They sail right over the top. The ship knows the enemy is there, but it can't find the center of the target to lock on. Suddenly, a flash of white light erupts from the dark. A pirate on the LPV's deck has ignited a high-intensity marine flare. The infrared cameras on the destroyer's bridge go completely white as the thermal sensors suffer an immediate overload from the sudden heat, while the AN/SPY-1D radar continues to track the radio frequency return. The crew is now optically blind, losing the ability to see exactly what the pirates are doing on deck. In that second of blindness, the sound of the pirates' 300 horsepower engines changes. A high-pitched scream pierces the roar of the wind. The LP-5 is hooking, a violent high-speed turn designed to put the pirate boat directly into the destroyer's blind spot behind the stern. The Mark 38 25mm gun on the starboard rail slews around, its electric motors whining. The gun can't see the boat, but it can see the heat left behind in the water. It's like tracking an invisible man by looking at his footprints in the mud. The commander orders warning shots. The Mark 38 erupts. 5 rounds of high-explosive ammunition streak into the air. They hit the water 50 yards in front of the pirate's bow, sending geysers of white foam 30 feet into the air. The LP-5 doesn't flinch. It accelerates. The pirate pilot is intentionally crossing the destroyer's bow, a suicide cross that forces the massive warship to either turn or collide. The pirates are trying to provoke a collision that would tear the fiberglass boat apart and potentially foul the destroyer's massive propellers with debris and high-tensile fishing nets. The destroyer's engines groan as the ship executes a hard-to-port maneuver. The hull tilts 10 degrees, the sea wash flooding the lower decks. The pirate boat misses the destroyer's bow by less than 30 feet. As it passes, the ghost finally becomes real. The crew sees 3 men on the LPV's deck. They aren't holding white flags. One of them is bracing a heavy metal tripod against the spray. The pirate isn't running, he's aiming back. The destroyer's AN/SPY-1D radar screen suddenly fragments. On the edge of the sea clutter, 8 new targets emerge. They are moving at 45 knots. They are converging. The 8 go-fast boats, each powered by 3 or 4 massive outboard engines, begin to crisscross the destroyer's wake. They are weaving in and out of the ship's blind spots, intentionally creating a target saturation environment. The destroyer's computer systems are designed to track high-altitude bombers and supersonic cruise missiles. But 8 fiberglass boats moving like water bugs at sea level creates a data overload. The destroyer is like a giant trying to swat 8 flies in a dark room. Every time the giant swings, the flies vanish into the shadows. The giant has all the power, but the flies have all the speed. The pirate boats close the distance to 800 yards. At this range, the destroyer's primary weapon, the Mark 45 5-inch gun on the bow, is effectively useless. The 5-inch gun is a sledgehammer. If the ship fires it at a boat this close, the shell might pass straight through the thin fiberglass without even exploding. Worse, the blast from the gun's own muzzle could shatter the destroyer's own delicate sensors. On the bridge, the infrared cameras show the pirates standing on the decks of the tossing boats holding RPG-7 launchers. One Go Fast breaks from the pack. It charges the destroyer's starboard side at full throttle. The boat hits the crest of a wave and catches air, the engine screaming as the propellers leave the water. The Mark 38 25mm gun on the starboard rail slews downward. The 25mm shells hit the water inches from the boat's hull. The pirate pilot pushes the boat closer. At 400 yards, a flash of orange light erupts from the pirate boat. An RPG-7 rocket streaks toward the destroyer. The rocket tumbles into the ocean on the other side and explodes in a harmless geyser of salt water. Though it failed, the pirates have just fired a kinetic weapon at a U.S. Navy vessel. The Mark 38 25mm gun shifts from warning to destruction. A burst of 5 high-explosive rounds hits the Go Fast boat squarely in the center of the hull. The fiberglass disintegrates. The front of the boat is ripped away from the back. The Go Fast is gone in less than 4 seconds, but there are still 7 boats, and they are all closing in. The ship's M240 machine guns on the bridge wings begin to chatter. The sailors are firing at the engines. Red tracers stitch across the water, skipping into the pirate hulls. The boats veer away. They are heading toward a new coordinate. The 7 remaining Go Fast boats disappear. The open ocean is now a floating city. A fleet of 60 civilian tuna fishing boats. These are wooden-hulled vessels packed with innocent fishermen who have no idea they are about to become a human shield. The pirates weave their Go Fasts in between the fishing boats. The pirates are hiding in a crowd. The U.S. Navy has the firepower to destroy everything in sight, but they can't fire a single shot without risking the lives of dozens of civilians. High above the fleet, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter is hovering at 500 feet. The crew is using a multispectral targeting system to look through the smoke and the spray. They find the heart of the operation, a 150-foot rusted steel trawler sitting at the center of the fishing fleet. This is the mother ship. It's a floating warehouse, acting as a refueling station and command center for the Swarm. The MH-60R Seahawk observes the mother ship's deck. The pirates are emboldened by the presence of the civilians. They begin to mount a PKM heavy machine gun on the trawler's bridge wing. The helicopter didn't fire. It used the air from its own blades to turn the ocean into a weapon. The pirate boat's bridge windows went completely white with salt spray. The crew was blind. The pirates panic. The man behind the PKM machine gun squeezes the trigger. Heavy 7.62mm rounds scream through the air. One round clangs off the Seahawk's landing gear. Another pierces the thin aluminum skin of the helicopter's tail boom. The pirates have just fired on a U.S. aircraft from the deck of a civilian vessel. The mothership is no longer a fishing boat. It is a hostile platform. The MH-60R Seahawk banks hard, pulling away to create a firing lane under the helicopter's right wing. The AGM-114 Hellfire missile's seeker head locks onto the laser spot being painted on the mothership's hull. The missile hits from above. This ensures that the explosion goes down into the ship's hull rather than out toward the civilian boats nearby. It's a surgical strike designed to kill the ship, not the fleet. The missile hits the mothership's engine room. The mothership's stern settles into the water instantly. The Go Fast boats tied to its side are sucked down with it, their lines snapping like guitar strings. The pirates who were firing the machine gun are thrown into the water. The back of the mothership has broken open. The mothership is dead in the water. The Swarm has lost its home. But as the mothership disappears, a second low-profile vessel emerges from the other side of the civilian fleet. It isn't running for the horizon, it is charging the destroyer's stern, and it is trailing a 200-foot heavy-duty drift net made of high-tensile nylon. The pirates are trying to foul the screws. If that net gets caught in the destroyer's propellers, the billion-dollar warship will be dead in the water, a sitting duck for the remaining Go Fasts to pick apart. The real fight has just started. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer's survival depends on 2 bronze propellers, each 17 feet wide. If they stop, the billion-dollar warship becomes a floating island, unable to turn, unable to run, and unable to defend its blind spots. The aft Mark 38 25mm gun screams into action. The pirate pilot is zigzagging, using the destroyer's own massive wake as a shield. The sea clutter from the ship's churning engines makes it nearly impossible for the computer to find a solid lock. The 25mm shells walk across the water. One shell hits the LPV's bow, punching a hole straight through the fiberglass. But the boat doesn't slow down. It's a suicide run. The pirates have weighted the net with lead sinkers, ensuring it sinks just deep enough to catch the propellers. The ship's 4 gas turbine engines, producing 100,000 horsepower, scream in reverse. By throwing the engines into reverse, the ship uses the water itself as a shield. The massive force of the propellers pushing forward creates a current that acts like a leaf blower, trying to push the pirate boat and its net away from the stern. But it isn't enough. The LP Vive cuts through the turbulence. At 50 yards, the pirate pilot jumps overboard, leaving the boat on a locked course. The M2H B.50 caliber machine gun on the aft rail opens up. The Ma Deuce is a relic of World War II, but its heavy slugs are designed to punch through engine blocks. The pirate boat's 3 outboard engines explode. The boat loses its thrust and begins to wallow in the waves just 20 feet from the destroyer's propellers. Emergency backing works. The current from the propellers pushes the net clear. The destroyer clears the trap, but the pirates have one last madness left in their playbook. The remaining 4 go-fast boats from the original swarm see the destroyer struggle. They regroup and charge simultaneously from 4 different angles. This is a desperate attempt to overwhelm the ship's defenses. High above, the MH-60R Seahawk marks the 4 targets. The Mark 38 25mm guns on both the port and starboard rails are slave to the drone's tracking data. The first go-fast is hit at 600 yards. The 25mm shells strike the fuel bladder in the center of the boat. It vanishes before it even hits the surface again. The second boat is engaged by the M240 machine guns. The pirate at the bow, holding an RPG-7, is knocked backward as the boat's windshield shatters into a million pieces. The boat veers wildly and collides with a floating debris field from the mothership, flipping end over end at 40 miles per hour. The third and fourth boats attempt a split run. One goes high toward the bow, the other goes low toward the stern. The destroyer's commander authorizes the use of the Mark 45 5-inch gun. The 5-inch gun fires a proximity fuse shell. The shell is designed to explode 10 feet above it. The gun barks once. The muzzle flash is 20 feet long. The shell streaks over the third pirate boat and detonates in midair. The fragmentation envelope rains down thousands of jagged steel shards at 3 times the speed of sound. The fourth and final boat sees the airburst and the driver loses his nerve. He kills the engines and puts his hands in the air. The water's quiet again, save for the low hum of the destroyer's turbines. The swarm is gone. The U.S. military has killed nearly 200 pirates and drug runners in these types of strikes in just 12 months. The destroyer doesn't stop to pick up the survivors. It notifies the local Coast Guard of the coordinates and resumes its course. The pirates challenged a billion-dollar warship with fiberglass and nylon. The ocean swallowed the result. Before you go, one thing about the AGM-114 Hellfire missile used by the Seahawk that almost no one talks about. While everyone focuses on the explosion, the real magic is in the soft launch. Unlike most missiles that kick off the rail with a massive blast that can unbalance a small helicopter, the Hellfire uses a 2-stage motor. It pops off the rail gently before the main rocket ignites. But here's the detail. The seeker head on the front of that missile is so sensitive it can see a laser spot through a thick fog or a wall of sea spray. The pirates thought the human shield of the fishing fleet would save them. They didn't realize the Hellfire can see the target's heartbeat through the smoke of its own engine. The moment that laser touched the mothership's hull, the pirates were already dead. They just didn't know it yet.
The text outlines a massive, fast-moving escalation in the Middle East that threatens to completely shatter the fragile ceasefire established in April 2026. This dynamic is a classic tit-for-tat cycle where actions in one theater, Lebanon, instantly trigger direct state-on-state warfare between Iran and Israel. Here is a breakdown of how this crisis unfolded over the last 24 to 48 hours, the shifting military strategies at play, and the distinct geopolitical friction developing between Washington and Jerusalem. Chronology of the escalation. The current flashpoint stems from a breakdown of the rules of engagement regarding Lebanon, triggering a rapid sequence of events. Hezbollah rocket salvo, northern Israel, filled down pointing triangle. Israeli airstrike, Beirut southern suburbs, 2 dead, 20 wounded, filled down pointing triangle. Iran missile barrage, 10+ ballistic missiles at northern Israel, filled down pointing triangle. Israeli retaliatory strike, Air-launched missiles hit Tehran, Tabriz, Isfahan and Mashhad, filled down Pointing Triangle. Second wave Iranian missiles, sirens active nationwide across Israel. Key tactical and geopolitical takeaways. 1. A new doctrine of regional deterrence. As analyst Trita Parsi noted, Iran is executing a completely new defense policy. Historically, Iran relied on regional proxies to fight indirectly. Now Tehran is willing to directly commit its own conventional military power, ballistic missiles, to draw a hard defensive line around Lebanon, treating it as an indivisible part of any broader peace architecture. 2. High-level friction, Trump versus Netanyahu. The text highlights a major shift in US-Israeli alignment under President Donald Trump's administration compared to previous leadership. The shots called. Trump explicitly stated to the Financial Times that he expects to dictate terms to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Defiance. Israel's strikes on Beirut and subsequent retaliation against mainland Iran directly ignored expletive-laden private warnings from Trump to show restraint, placing bilateral relations in a highly tense state. International isolation. Analysts note that Israel remains politically weak on the global stage and lacks the diplomatic or long-term structural insulation to fight an all-out multi-front war entirely independent of US logistics and political backing. 3. Structural impact inside Iran. While the strikes on the Karun petrochemical plant in Mashhad reportedly caused no civilian casualties, the domestic impact is visible. Local authorities immediately reduced city office staffing capacity to 30%, bracing for extended infrastructure disruption. Concurrently, Iran has taken a hard diplomatic stance, closing its western airspace and publicly accusing the UN's nuclear watchdog, IAEA, of deliberate bias to deflect international pressure. The immediate threat, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has explicitly warned that this is not a singular retaliatory event, but the introduction of a continuous round-the-clock missile and drone campaign designed to force a total halt to Israeli operations.